Hey everyone, this is Austin Schur here with We Write About Music, and today I'm speaking with Michael Thomas of Night Swims. He's just shared an all new album titled Idlewild, and I'm super excited to talk to him all about it. Michael, I want to sincerely thank you so much for coming on today. How are you doing?
I'm well, Austin. I'm well. Thank you for having me on.
You're very welcome. Where are
Yeah,
you? Where are you at in the world?
I'm in my home studio in San Diego.
Oh, nice. That's my hometown.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, where about?
I live over in South Park.
Okay, cool. I'm like from like the Rancho Bernardo Escondido area, kind of.
Finest city in all of Southern California is what my bassist likes to say. He's from Escondido.
I mean, maybe arguably the best food in California, depending on your preferences. But
Yeah, I have to admit I don't make the 40-minute drive to go partake in the local cuisine, but maybe you can convince me.
I mean, if you're a Mexican food guy, you can pretty much get it anywhere. I'm up here in Los Angeles right now, and people go nuts over the food here, and I'm like, no, you haven't been to San Diego. No,
No, it's surprising because moved out here about 7 years ago
okay,
from Chicago, and Chicago's always kind of been known as the food city of the Midwest kind of
sure.
thing. And don't get me wrong, it's amazing cuisine. When we came out here, we were having a rough time. It seemed like my wife likes to use like the review systems to figure out where to go, and everywhere had like 5 stars, and we slowly realized that, oh, it has 5 stars because it's cheap, not because it's actually good.
Exactly, exactly.
So it took a little bit to start finding our footing as
Sure.
far as the cuisine is concerned, but I mean, honestly, San Diego has really emerged as far as that.
It absolutely has. And listen, I could talk about food all day long, but I want to talk about this record.
Yeah,
So let's
yeah.
get right into it, man. I've been listening to it nonstop since it got sent my way, and it is seriously fantastic. It's totally the type of music that I listen to in my personal time. So I typically judge a little bit harder, but honestly, you've hit all the right chords here. First thing I really want to know about is what is it about? Like what does it represent for you?
So thanks for listening.
Of course.
Obviously, I love hearing that. Idlewild, it kind of was a collection of stories from my life up until
Okay.
this point. I'd always kind of been less direct in lyrical content that I had written in the past with previous projects and things of
Sure.
that nature. This one became a bit more intimate, and I think that has a lot to do with kind of how the music was coming about
Yeah.
and how it made me feel. It gave me a chance to really be comfortable with being as personal as I am on it. It's it's a very hopeful record, I feel,
Yeah.
but it also has a lot of kind of darkness to it. It it's very much a reflection on sort of how I grew up, what I went through in my early life, and kind of now on that precipice of coming out of all of that.
Hmm.
And I don't want to be too vague, but
Sure.
um, yeah, I mean, it's definitely about love. It's like most songs, everyone a
I
lot of the ones that
understand.
I like have a lot to do with love, but I mean, it's about loss too, quite a
Yeah.
bit. Right before I started writing this, my mom died,
I,
and so that was like kind of a big deal.
yeah. I'm sorry to hear
And
that, but I
no,
can only
no,
imagine it influenced the writing as well.
yeah, and it kind of stripped me down a bit. I mean, I always had this sort of dance around ego, and what that means to the kind of the human experience. And when I was in my early 20s, I kind of checked my ego and got over myself, because up until
Sure.
that point, like a lot of people,
Yeah.
you think that you know better and that you know the world, more than the people before you. Um, but I checked it in probably a more self-destructive way. Um, and this was a way for me to kind of deal with that in a more positive way. Instead of this self-destructive nature that one can kind of, find themselves falling into.
Yeah,
This was a way of like bringing me out of all that. And you know there's some points in the record where it's pretty on the nose, I would
sure.
say, as far as what I'm talking about, as far as what I've been through. And then there's stuff that's definitely a bit more metaphorical and meant to be kind of taken less deliberate and less it gives a chance for the listener to explore the songs, I feel, in a way that it can relate to them and sort of what they're going through.
Sure. No, you always need to leave it up to interpretation. Make sure that people can relate and make those connections themselves, even though the story's out there for you.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, if you make a really personal record, a lot of times, artists that I know that have done that, you kind of pigeonhole yourself a bit, and
Totally.
it gives less of an experience for the listener, which, I mean, when writing music, I'm writing for myself. Like, that's
Absolutely.
first and foremost. But I mean, let's be real, just because I'm writing for myself doesn't mean I don't want other people to listen to.
Well, yeah, you're making music for you. Like,
Yeah.
even putting the message aside, just like instrumentally, like you're crafting the tone that you think fits best for the message, I would assume here. And it's just like you want to make the music that you want to listen to. I would do the same.
Yeah. And I mean, I had been in a lot of bands where it was like, all right, we're going to play this style of genre, and I got over that. I was, that's
Sure.
to be honest, that's never anything that I truly wanted to do. It was just kind of going with the flow.
I get
This
it.
was like, yeah, this was the music that I want to listen to,
Yep.
and sonically, that was where we went big with the production side.
Yep. Is Night Swims just you?
No, it's me, my bassist Dave Savoain, my drummer Nathan Atwood, and our guitarist is Tim Powers, who
Nice.
he came on actually after the album was finished.
Oh, what do you mean? Like,
So we up through the recording process, we had a couple different players come on as far as guitarists are concerned. I wrote all the guitar parts, but they were performed by other people, and Tim came
gotcha.
on as kind of the permanent, like, live performance guy. And hopefully in the future we'll be able to kind of lend his abilities to the writing process.
Very cool. I mean, even just like, yeah, the instrumentation is fantastic, and you keep the listener guessing, which is something that I really appreciate the most on this. Yeah, sure, it's rock, but rock is such a huge umbrella of sound
Mhm.
these days. I almost don't even know what I would call it. Like, if you had to put a label on it, how would you sort of like, what's like the elevator pitch for this record in terms of sound?
I've been prepping myself for this answer. It used to be, man, I
But,
don't fucking know.
but
But yeah,
that's
yeah, but
that's the
not,
right answer too.
yeah, yeah, but to basically dumb it down for people, it's space rock. I
Sure.
mean, I think that's kind of the easiest way to describe it. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of people like to say, oh, well, it's alternative. And to be honest, I
Oh,
don't really
geez.
know what that means, because I mean,
Everything's alternative.
that's
Everything
kind
is not
yeah.
just like classic rock, like that
Yeah,
70s, 80s sound. It's all different these days.
yeah. And whenever anybody says that word, it's just like it kind of, I have to admit, it gives me pause, because look, I grew up in the 90s.
Sure.
I When you heard alternative rock, the bands that you think with alternative rock aren't exactly the ones that I want to sound like. And
I understand.
that so that's kind of a hard term for me to kind of grasp onto. But yeah, I mean, generally I say it's space rock.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a lot of space there, there's a lot of layers. I feel like for this record specifically, I gave a lot of room in the songs for the instruments to breathe.
Totally.
And that was important to me, because like I grew up listening to a lot of music where, everything seemed very compressed,
I
and
understand.
very busy. And like, look, don't get me wrong, that's good for certain states of mind. But this was very much, I wanted to take the whomever's listening, I wanted to give them a journey, to use that kind of cliche word. I wanted to,
I understand, man.
I wanted to provide that for them.
The album experience, I feel, is being lost nowadays. We're in this world of streaming where it's okay, it's Friday, here's one new single, okay, we'll see you in a month, okay, here's another single, see you next month. But the actual cohesive album listening experience where you lose yourself in music feels like a lost art. And that's what I really enjoyed about this so much, is like you hit the play button at the beginning and nothing around you matters. Like you're fully immersed in the music, and the spaciness of it kind of makes you travel as a person. I don't know if that sounds weird or crazy, but you really do lose yourself in it.
I mean, I have to say, like, seriously, that's the utmost compliment, because that was what my aim was. It was
you nailed it. I'm serious, man.
Thank you. Like, it was to create a completely cohesive piece of art, from front to back, and to, like, look, I get why people write singles. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
It's, we're in this interesting phase with, streaming, where it feels like we're back in the 50s, where it's like everybody's just looking to get that radio play and to get that song out there, and then the rest of the album doesn't really matter at the end of it. And it's nothing against any bands that are doing that. Look, you do you. For me, it's like I want the whole album to matter. I want, and whilst there's some moments on the album where it's like, okay, that's a hooky song that could probably be like a single, should we say. It's also like, when I listen to it too, I'm like, yeah, it could be a single, but I kind of cut like 40 seconds out of the song, and
I get it, man. You're allowed. It's not that you're not allowed to have a single sounding song. Like, I mean, even in the age of playlists where it's like, I don't really feel like, I don't have 40 minutes or whatever to listen to a full album. I'm just going to listen to select songs. I'm going to listen to the best songs. I'm going to put them on a mood playlist or something like that. Sure, you could pull a few. But I think, I mean, this record specifically does give you the option to really dive in and experience the whole thing. I think it goes both ways, but you're not writing in mind for like, okay, so this radio station wants this, so I'm going to make this. And again, it goes back to you spending the time and the money and the patience and putting the effort into doing what you want to do, and you're doing it. So that gives you all the freedom in the world.
Yeah, and I definitely, right now I'm in that particular phase of Night Swim's career, which is that I have all the freedom in the world, and that's something that's very important to me to keep going forward, no matter if we're successful or not, is to make exactly the type of music that I want to make, and to, not really think about, okay, we've released an album, in 3 months we got to release a single so we can stay in the minds of everybody, or stay on the radar. It's like, no, I want this album to be out there for people to listen to it, to spend time with it, come back to it, and by the time we're ready to release another piece of music, I'm ready to release that piece of music.
Can't rush art. I fully agree, man.
No.
There's not really much else to say except, like, if you rush it and there's a label behind you telling you, okay, we need it by next week or you're out of here, then it just, you come up with things that shouldn't be out there. And I don't know, it compromises your musicianship, I feel.
Yeah, and it's also forgotten. Like, I mean, that's like a thing for me. It's like, I have a hard time absorbing a lot of the music out there nowadays. And I've had this kind of argument with myself. Well, am I just getting older? Am I kind of out of touch? And I realized that no, I know good music. I've always had a good palate for it.
Yeah.
And most of the shit that comes out, for me anyway, is very forgettable. It's, it'll hit those kind of dopamine chords, right?
Yeah.
Right when it comes out, and it'll hit all those like kind of notes that your brain functions with, and it's like, okay, this is pleasant. But then when you're done with it, it's like you forget what you listened to immediately.
Yeah.
And
it lacks substance.
It lacks substance. And I feel bad, I partially feel bad because it's like, all right, I feel like I'm shitting on other people's art, But at the same time, it's like, no, like that's okay, because for me, like, I didn't grow up religious.
Sure.
Music was that kind of thing that I revered. And
Totally.
so it's like, it's precious to me, it's sacred to me. And I don't really take kindly to people, to be honest, kind of fucking with that. Like,
Totally.
and
No, you're
making,
entitled to your opinions. You can say
yeah.
whatever you want.
Which, by the way, am
Obviously,
I
yeah.
allowed to curse here? I
Yeah,
apologize.
there's no rules.
Yeah,
You can say whatever you want.
I have a bit of a mouth at
It's
times, so
it's
my
all good.
apologies.
And don't apologize. Yeah, I would feel weird telling you not to say what you want. There's
Yeah,
no, yeah. Yeah, you are fully entitled to your opinions, and it goes back to the, taking the, it's not a slight against the person who made the music, rather just what they put out. Like, they could be a
yeah,
great person, but you know what? You just don't vibe with it. And that's, at the end of the day, there's always going to be something new coming out. So,
yeah. That's the nice thing, right? Is
right,
I
every
mean,
damn day.
everybody's always waiting for something new. So if it
Yeah,
sucks, the next day something good will come out.
exactly.
And I mean, there's a ton of great music that's
Right,
coming out.
of course.
And I think music is in a really exciting place where it's, people that before, streaming became widely accessible, and before the internet, there was some great voices out there that never went heard, mostly because, they didn't fit the mold.
Sure.
And now it gives a chance for people to really explore. And I think it's exciting, and I'm really excited about where music could be in the future, based off of, like, when I was growing up, when I wanted to learn about the older artists, it was reading liner notes of albums.
Sure.
It was like
Yeah.
seeing who they were thanking, and then looking up that person, and then kind of going back from there. Now it's, you have relatively the same thing, which is, you look up an artist on Spotify, it tells you what fans also like of that artist,
Yeah. Kind of just takes the guesswork out.
yeah, and you can kind of like go down those rabbit holes. And I mean, I like to think that I had a pretty well manicured idea and history of music, but I mean, I love finding new bands that came out 70 years ago that I'd never even heard of.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah, and that's what's exciting to see, kind of that influence on like newer generations of musicians.
I get it. Are you guys playing shows, or is that anything
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
in the near works?
yeah. So we've been playing since July. We started during the pandemic, so
Sure.
we kind of began, like, I took about 10 months and wrote this album.
Wow. Okay.
So I structured everything, orchestrated all the parts, and then during that time started putting the pieces together slowly, as far as the players are concerned, and did a lot of rehearsing, and then started playing live in July of 21.
Okay.
That was our first show. We've been playing pretty steadily since, 2, sometimes 3 shows a month right now, mostly in the Southern California area.
Sweet.
But now we're starting to branch out. We kind of did the club circuit in San Diego, which can be, it's a smaller scene,
Totally.
so there's not a ton of places to play. So we found ourselves already playing like the same club 3 or 4 times, and it's like, all right, I want to branch out. I want to get this music out there. So we played LA, our first time playing LA, a couple weeks ago.
Congrats on that. Where'd you play?
Harvard and Stone.
Okay. It sounds familiar.
Yeah. It's I want to say it's in Little Armenia area.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great spot. It's got
Totally.
a ton of really cool history to it. Even though it's still a newer venue, a lot of bands that I grew up loving and listening to have played there pretty frequently. And the guy who used to manage it is the drummer for the band called the Warlocks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
He doesn't manage it anymore. It's under new management.
Gotcha.
Actually, the guy that manages it now is in this LA band called Night Jacket.
That also sounds familiar. There's so many bands, man.
Yeah, there's so many bands, and so many bands with the name Night in front of them too, is what I'm learning. So yeah, we played our first show there. We got a few more coming up in LA. Some of them are not completely concrete, but they're gonna be.
Cool.
And then right now we're in talks with a booking company that's putting together a string of dates for us in Northern California.
Very
So we're
cool.
gonna do the whole Bay Area. We're looking at that midsummer, and then right now, I mean, honestly, it's funny how this works out, but our music's really starting to hit in the UK and Europe.
Just streaming wise, you mean? Just
Streaming
like,
wise, yeah,
hell
like
yeah.
so that's cool. You know, I mean, I grew up being highly influenced by a lot of English bands.
Totally.
I think that you can definitely hear that in the music.
Sure.
So it's not surprising to me. I guess I kind of always figured, okay, yeah, UK will maybe dig this. You know, maybe we're too melancholy even for them.
No, no, no. I don't think it's like that at all.
But so we're kind of looking at that too. Like, I mean, we want to tour the States, but I keep joking with the guys. I'm like, we're gonna end up playing London before New York.
You know
Like
what? There's nothing wrong with that. Take a little
that.
trip out there.
I'm totally cool with that. But also, you know, I'm
Absolutely.
my home base prior to here was Chicago, so
Okay.
I definitely want to get back to the Midwest, do that circuit, and
It'll happen.
try and get an East Coast thing going. Basically, our aim over this next year is to get about 3 mini tours put
Okay.
in, like one doing the Northern California and Southern California circuit, and then get one for the Midwest, and then one for the East Coast,
Awesome.
and
Uh
kind of just push the record, you know.
I mean that's the goal. It doesn't need to be the album follow up in the month. Here's a
Yeah.
single. Just like live it, let it breathe, let it do its thing. Um, I've got a couple more questions for you at this point. I cannot believe we're in the middle of March, but I'm still considering it the beginning of the year. And you've kind of touched upon what I'm going to ask, but what are some other, I guess, musical goals that you'd like to hit by the end of this year?
I think, you know, yeah, obviously I touched on the touring part. I
Sure.
think, you know, my biggest goal is to bring the album to life
Mhm.
live in a way that is not just commendable, but does it justice. You know,
Yep.
there's a lot in this album that, you know, it's difficult to pull off live.
Sure.
And so, like, honestly, my end goal by the end of this year is I want to be playing a show where I have the full orchestra behind me. That would be,
Amazing.
you know, I want to get the horn sections on there. I want to get the string players up there, and that to me would be, that would be a year's end that I'd be satisfied with. And
I
then,
love that. That's the goal right there.
yeah, and I mean, of course, you know, I want to get us on some bigger dates. Like,
Sure.
I want us to be in a position where we can succeed further,
Yeah.
and hopefully get into some sort of supporting tour act. You know, I would love to open up for some, you know, more mainstream artists,
Of
you know,
course.
bit more second tier, third tier bands,
Right.
and or second tier or first tier bands.
Sure.
And, you know, that I think is very tangible. You know, I think if I'm giving sort of any congratulatory effect to my music, I think that it has a wide audience to it. I
I
think
agree.
I think it can reach a lot of people. You know, we've seen a lot of like playback coming from like the 25 to 35-year-old crowd, but then we've gotten a lot of like kids that are looking for something different.
Totally.
And that's been kind of cool to see, because I was one of those kids. You know, I wanted something different that wasn't what was being played on the radio.
Right.
And then also, like, I mean, maybe my dad's just being nice, but my dad's age group, he's like playing it for all of his friends, super proud of his son, and they're all
That's the
digging it.
way.
So it's like, you know, I'm seeing like more older crowd getting into it,
I
which I
love that,
love.
man.
You know, I love hearing that, because it's like, you know, I think it resembles a lot of some of what they grew up on, you know, like, and at the same time it still is contemporary, and it still feels fresh to like these newer generations.
Fully agree. Um, all right, Michael, I've got one more question for you at this point.
Mhm.
And before I ask, I just want to thank you so much for your in-depth answers. This has been a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, man.
Basically, the question is for the person that is going to discover you guys from this, and for the person that is going to listen to your music for the first time, what is an opening message that you'd like to say to them?
Man, that's a that's an interesting question. I would say go into it with no expectations.
Yes. I think that's a great answer. You can't be let down if you have high expectations.
Yeah, and I think like if you go into anything with no expectations, a lot of times you'll come out very pleased. And I think whether or not one song grabs you the way that you like to be grabbed, wait for the next one, because it's it flows in a way that it kind of hits a lot of genres in a lot of areas that I think when, you know, as you mentioned, thinking about albums as a full piece of art,
Totally.
I think that will draw you into wanting to re-listen to what maybe you might have glanced over.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's a perfect place to wrap up. I wanna obviously plug your music one more time. The band is called Night Swims. The album is called Idlewild, and we'll have links so everyone can listen and follow along and share with their friends. But at this point, I'm personally invested. I can't wait to hopefully see you guys at a show in LA. But I also hope you hit London by the end of this year. I
Yeah.
think that would be amazing.
Well,
Um,
I'll make sure I reach out to you and let you know when we're
please,
playing in
please,
LA. You know,
please do.
well,
Michael, thank you so much for your time, man. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I truly hope to speak soon.
thanks, Austin. I
You're
appreciate you.
very welcome. Take care, man.
You too.
Bye bye.